people around the FM area weigh in on the trial that the whole world was watching. We have a live report.
Also ahead, Fargo businesses who took the brunt of destruction during the downtown riots get ready for the aftermath of the Derek Chauvin verdict. Plus, how that Chauvin verdict might translate to worse news for the 3 other former police officers also charged in George Floyd's death. But first, it is a sigh of relief in more ways than one for a lot of people overnight.
Crowds gathered in the wake of the Derek Chauvin verdict. They were mostly peaceful, though, as they came together to celebrate a bittersweet victory, as some called it. And
now this is a look at East 38th Street and Chicago Avenue in Minneapolis, the area now known as George Floyd Square, where Floyd was killed last May. Chauvin, he was found guilty on all counts for the murder of George Floyd. His bond revoked and he was handcuffed and then ushered out of the courtroom.
This is only the second known time a police officer has been convicted of murder in Minnesota for an on-duty killing. And the first time such a conviction has been one against a white officer who killed a black man. The maximum sentence Chauvin could face is 40 years for second-degree murder, 25 years for third-degree murder, and 10 years for second-degree manslaughter. Meanwhile, it was a quiet night in Fargo hours after that verdict came out. Many in the community gathered around town right away to celebrate, but then things seemed to calm down.
And that's what people wanted to see in the Valley. Today's Brian Sherrod. He joins us live in downtown this moment, where a year ago it was a very different scene than what it is now. Good morning, Brian.
Well, good morning, Jordan and Lisa. It continued to be a quiet scene in downtown Fargo. We're actually at First Avenue North, where most of the damage happened around this time last year when it came to the death of George Floyd. Now, what we can tell you is that we've been down here for the last couple of hours and it remains to be quiet. Now, it was a much different scene last May after the George Floyd death. Protesters roamed the streets, rioting, and many businesses were badly damaged. Now, the verdict is bringing relief to many who've watched the case since last May.
I'm actually really glad because the man who killed George Floyd is guilty and they're finally bringing justice to him.
The testimony that I heard, like how 9 minutes, that's excessive, and the person who trained him said that was excessive force, and I'm like, if the person who trained him in how to use force says that that's excessive force, then how can you, that's guilty to me.
Okay, so the city of Fargo and Fargo police posted on Facebook after the verdict that they support the jury's decision. Fargo PD say they will continue to work with regional law enforcement agencies to monitor for any threats, adding that they respect every person's right to peacefully assemble and are prepared to work collaboratively with the community to advance these critical conversations. So Fargo Police Department continues to say that they haven't had to respond to any threats of violence or any issues when it comes to riots, and us as well, as we've been down here for the last few hours. We'll also continue to update you throughout the morning if there are any changes.
Brian Sherrod reporting live. Thank you for that update.
And we'll have more on the Chauvin stories in just a few minutes, but we do want to get a quick check from our meteorologist, Lisa Green, this morning, so you know what to expect as you head out the door on this Wednesday morning. All right, it looks like we're having some trouble getting a hold of Lisa, so we will continue on with our Derek Chauvin coverage. Attention now turns to the other 3 officers present when George Floyd died. That's Toe Tao, Thomas Lane, and J. Alexander King. They're facing charges of aiding and abetting Chauvin on 2 of his charges. A hearing is scheduled for the 3 officers for May 20th.
The Minnesota Attorney General will try to add a third-degree murder charge against the former officers. They are scheduled to face trial in August, and each could face more than 16 years in prison.
And we're hearing now that we do have our connection up and running with Lisa, so let's go to her and get a check of that Wednesday morning forecast. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning. We have some improving conditions ahead of us today. We have actually already started to see our temperatures rise. Earlier this morning, we set a record in Fargo. Yesterday, we broke records for lows in Grand Forks. This morning, it was Fargo. We dropped down to 18 degrees overnight, and now we're looking at temperatures rising from there. The previous record was 20 degrees. So a pretty start right now, a perfect view in Fargo as we're looking at that sun peeking through the clouds. And there are areas with some breaks in the clouds, but overall more on the mostly cloudy side here to start off the day today. Let's take a look at our current conditions. We are into the 20s mainly in the valley. Fargo, remember, we dropped down to 18. We're now at 26. Grand Forks is at 23. 29 in Devils Lake and in Jamestown and Fergus Falls and Bemidji, both are at 23. Take a look at those winds. The direction has changed for many of us, out of the west or out of the southwest, and that tends to be a warming direction, and that's why our numbers have gone up here today. I've been keeping an eye on the radar here this morning. We've been watching some snow in those clouds detected on the radar passing through. I did get a report of some light snow coming down in Langdon, so visibility is reduced a little bit there, but otherwise I haven't seen very many reports. I've been keeping an eye on our DOT cams and on our sky cams here at the station and haven't seen much. So most of this staying aloft, and you can see in Langdon our visibility is down to 5 miles right now. Elsewhere we're at the peak at 10 miles at the moment. So the potential is there for some flakes this morning. Eventually that will wind down and we'll just end up with some mostly cloudy skies or some clearing going on. So out at the bus stop this morning, temperatures into the 20s, not too bad, but the kids will probably want that heavier coat anyway with wind chills into the teens. And then this afternoon, we'll see those temperatures rise about 10 degrees warmer than yesterday. So upper 40s to some low 50s and some sunshine returning as well into the afternoon. That sets us up for a really nice day tomorrow. Thursday looks sunny and mild. We're talking about temperatures into the upper 50s to low 60s. And 60 is basically our average high for this date. So we are going to be right at average, and that's going to feel good compared to where we've been. More chances for precip Friday and into Saturday and next week as well.
Okay, we need the precipitation, but I'm looking forward to just warmer, sunnier days as well.
We need that as well for
Yeah,
our mental well-being, I think. All right, Lisa, thank you. With many businesses in downtown Fargo say they're now taking a sit-tight approach, and they're waiting to see what happens in the coming days with the Derek Chauvin verdict. Places like Vinyl Taco and JL Beers, they were vandalized during the downtown riot last May. But thanks to an outpouring of support, it didn't take long for people then to respond with brooms and tools to fix up and clean up the pieces.
Fargo police say they're working with regional law enforcement agencies to monitor for any threats. Moorhead PD also has emergency operations in place for all sorts of situations, but nothing specific to the Chauvin trial. We also spoke with the North Dakota National Guard, which says it's ready to go if the governor calls them up. Plus, Fargo Public Schools have resources in place in regards to the trial. They're asking staff members to recognize and validate students' emotional needs, acknowledge their own self-limitations, and provide support as needed.
Sentencing for Derek Chauvin will be in about 2 months, and that's a lot longer than the usual 2 weeks. They will do a pre-sentencing investigation, which is like a background check on the defendant. The maximum sentence that Chauvin could face is for second-degree murder. That charge alone is 40 years.
The presumptive sentences under Minnesota sentencing guidelines, however, are 12.5 years for each murder charge and 4 years for the manslaughter charge. That's for a person with no criminal record. There's speculation that Chauvin will spend at least 10 years in prison.
A Barnesville teacher is now on leave from his teaching and coaching duties after being arrested over the weekend. Stuart Brandt was arrested on Saturday after a fight with his roommate.
Court documents say he shoved her, grabbed her arms and neck, and then punched her. Brandt has been employed by the school district for 2 years and works as the elementary Phi Ed teacher, head wrestling coach, and junior high baseball coach. A boy is facing several charges for allegedly assaulting 2 people in the Fargo South High School parking lot. A female student alerted the school resource officer about a problem on Friday. Police say the officer asked the boy, who knew the girl, to leave campus, but he refused and began assaulting the girl and another male student.
The officer had to use his taser, and the suspect was then arrested. The boy is facing charges of assault, preventing arrest, violation of a protection order, and disturbance of a public school. School officials say that he is not a Fargo Public School student. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum will sign off later this morning on a historic bonding package for the state.
He'll be joined by state and local government officials and state legislators for the official signing of a $680 million bonding package that will support infrastructure across the state, including flood control, roads, bridges, water projects, and higher education infrastructure for agriculture. $435 million is for the FM Diversion Flood Project. Valley News Live is teaming up with Golden Drive to help homeless children in Fargo and West Fargo, and we need your help. All week, you can drop off food at the West Fargo Fire Department.
They'll take anything packaged and non-perishable, everything from bottled water to cereal, crackers, maybe even Pop-Tarts. The donations, they will be given to area schools and shelters, so help us fill those bags. Again, that is, you can drop those off, I believe it was the West Fargo
Fire Department.
Despite suffering their second loss of the season last weekend, the Bison football team is looking ahead to some playoff action now. The Bison, they lost their regular season finale to South Dakota State, marking the first regular season with multiple losses. Get this, that hadn't happened since 2015.
It also kept them out of the conference championship race for the first time in a decade. The Bison and the Eagles meet up this Saturday at 2:30 at the Dome. You will only be able to watch it on ESPN3, not here on KVLY. It's an ESPN exclusive. We will be here, however, for your pregame needs. 1:30 we get started with the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show as NDSU and Eastern Washington go at it in the first round of the FCS playoffs.
Meanwhile, to the north, UND is also preparing for their playoffs. They'll host a postseason game for the first time since 2016. The historic 4-1 season came to a head for the Fighting Hawks with a conference championship, winning a share of the Missouri Valley Football Conference in their first year with the league. UND and Missouri State, they'll kick off at 3 p.m. this Saturday. It's the first round of the FCS playoffs, and again, that game as well will be on ESPN3.
Let's get our answer now to our question of the morning on Facebook. Today's question: 3% of people admit they've broken down and cried in the last year over this.
The answer is computer problems.
Oh,
I'm surprised
frustrating.
it's not a higher percentage,
I agree.
because those computers can be a problem. The Today Show and CBS This Morning, it's just about to start, but the Valley Today rolls on. More live, up-to-the-minute news and weather for you on this Wednesday morning right now on the Fargo CW.